So let's preview our 37th president, Richard Nixon. He was an interesting figure, the first and only to resign from that office. He resigned because of something called the Watergate scandal. It really leads to a question: what was it and why did he resign? You'll be learning a little bit more about it. It's kind of a complex deal, but it basically was a cover up of information that he knew of the Republicans spying on the Democrats. It ended up with him leaving the office with his arms outstretched and a famous quote of him saying, "I am not a crook." But how did he get here?
So tonight, to you, the great silent majority of my fellow Americans, I ask for your support. I pledged in my campaign for the presidency to end the war in a way that we could win the peace. I have initiated a plan of action which will enable me to keep that pledge. The more support I can have from the American people, the sooner that pledge can be redeemed. For the more divided we are at home, the less likely the enemy is to negotiate at Paris. Let us be united for peace. Let us also be united against defeat. Because let us understand, North Vietnam cannot defeat or humiliate the United States. Only Americans can do that.
This leads to one of your first vocabulary assignments where we talk about the silent majority. Nixon gained favor because he put himself out there to gain support from the more rural, white, middle and upper class Americans who did not appreciate some of the anti war and really anti government demonstrations that we learned about in the previous unit from the growing trend of social movements in this country. Those are the people from what were the heartland of America that started to support him.
Straight from the heartland, the attitude.
Television covered the conflict in the cities, and on occasion it turned to what ABC News' Don Farmer termed the heartland.
There are many towns and counties like this one, and these people make up an important segment of American society. But too often their voices seem to get lost amidst the clamor from our urban centers. And so ABC News came here to Grand Island to listen.
Well, we voted Nixon in as our president, and we have to go along with his judgment.
I think probably we do have closed minds for a lot of things. We are going by the old rules and regulations, and we haven't advanced. And I have two children in college now, and they're for this moratorium and all this, and very concerned with the Cambodia situation.
One of the reasons I bought the flag is because I have a brother-in-law that's fighting in Vietnam right now, and I feel this is one way that I can tell my feelings about what he's doing over there and show some kind of support. Another reason is because I want my sons to grow up with a respect for the United States flag, and I feel if they see it flown here every day that they will get this respect.
The heartland remained conservative.
And that was a victory for Nixon. He won the election and even had some victories on the ping pong table.
I was so good that some years later, the Army decided that I should be on the All-America ping pong team. We were the first Americans to visit the land of China in like a million years, or something like that. Somebody said world peace was in our hands, but all I did was play ping pong.
Forrest Gump didn't actually play ping pong in China, but there were a group of Americans that did go there to play in what was called ping pong diplomacy. This was an action of Nixon to improve relations with Mao Zedong and Communist China. And he didn't stop there. He also began to improve relations with Vietnam by calling for a ceasefire. And some Americans were happy with this.
But some Americans were coming back from Vietnam with changed perspectives. One of them was Lieutenant John Kerry, here filmed in the Mekong Delta with his own 8mm camera.
A typical mission, it really didn't have any sense to it. The logic that was explained to us by the command in Vietnam was that we were, quote, showing the flag in the backyard of the enemy. There were people who believed. There were people who believed that we were fighting communism and that this was terrific and it was important and who were all swept up in it. But I think most people did not. Most people began to see that. We weren't gaining any territory. We weren't winning the hearts and minds of anybody. We certainly weren't securing any particular strongholds or strategic objectives. We were simply doing a very macho kind of public demonstration of our presence. People did not listen to the veterans of the war. The press itself had difficulty in perceiving of a group of Vietnam veterans being opposed to the war, and that it was a story of profound importance. Why the war itself was wrong, and why we were not going to be successful, and why we had to recognize that. We just felt that story had to be told, and the only way to tell it was to take it to Washington in that form.
Eventually, the Watergate scandal was too much for Nixon, and Gerald Ford replaced him as President of the United States.